The Holler Kings, where the horror's southern fried.
Hello, it's me, Craig,
And it's me, Adam.
and we're the Holler Kings.
Oh my God. Did you hear that?
That's what I was
Let's not bury the lead here. That was majestic.
Well, that's the thing is we don't have to really say we're the Holler Kings anymore because we have an excellent theme song now that you just witnessed or put in your ear holes.
Unless
And-
y'all did some bullshit like fast forward through it, y'all just heard who we are.
Oh, it's true. It's true. And I was so excited to get this theme song. It's performed by Hi-Fi, which is Eric Newell. Eric is the host and creator of Bloody Good Horror, which is a really great horror podcast and extremely influential on me with podcasting about horror films and everything. So definitely check out Bloody Good Horror if you listen to this and you've never heard of it. But also, Hi-Fi is kind of his synthwave musical project, and you can totally find him on Bandcamp. He has several albums, and they're all very horror themed. Like
Nice.
they sample from horror themes and just have that kind of, I don't know if this is the appropriate word, but aesthetic of, spookiness and I
That ambiance.
yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. And at my night job, a lot of times that's my backing soundtrack. It's like nice and spooky, but also kind of it kind of drives you a little bit. If that
Yeah.
makes sense. But yeah, definitely check out Hi-Fi. That's HYFY, and on Twitter they're at Hi-Fi_music. And also he collaborated with one Elizabeth Kyle. She's the one that does the voice at the
yeah.
beginning. Very authentically Southern in her case because she's from Memphis. So
Nice.
we have a nice, Southern voice to kick us off.
Keep it all in the family here.
And she's at Final Girl Scout on Twitter. She also is on Bloody Good Horror as a guest and musician in her own right. So definitely look her up. Oh yeah, Elizabeth Kyle. She's guested on Bloody Good Horror, but also they have kind of I hesitate to call it a sister podcast, but they have a related podcast called Plug It Up, which is about, feminine horror, right? It's kind of eccentric
right
about, women's issues and horror, and it's really good.
I wonder if those are on Stitcher. Because that's what I mainly listen to my podcasts on.
Bloody Good Horror and Plug It Up, I would think would be on every platform.
Really?
Because they're pretty upper echelon.
Yeah.
They've been Bloody Good Horror has been around since 2007.
I've heard of Bloody Good
Yeah.
Horror. That sounds familiar, but
It's an excellent podcast. I mean,
might have to check it out because I listen to podcasts all day, so might have to check it out.
yeah. So thank you, Eric and Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you both, and everybody out there, go follow them right now.
Absolutely. Without further ado, what is the movie we're discussing today?
We will be discussing the movie from a year that it came, I think, what was it, 70s, 80s?
It's actually 1981.
1981.
It's set in 73, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I think that's where I got confused at. Yes, we are going to talk about the movie Southern Comfort.
In the bayous of Louisiana, two innocent groups of people are about to collide. The people who live there
Wheel you back in here. This is our home.
and the National Guardsmen on weekend maneuvers.
I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna fight my way out of here.
Southern Comfort. Experience it. Rated R.
Starts Friday at the UA Westwood and the Egyptian in Hollywood.
I feel like this is especially appropriate because we finally have our own true theme song
Yeah.
for Holler Kings, and now the first movie we talk about with that theme is literally Southern in the
yeah.
title. It's perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're National Guardsmen, I believe. Yeah, because they don't have live rounds or anything. Basically, these National Guards that are stationed in some part of Louisiana.
Right.
Having to do some little mission where they got to trek through the swamps and all that.
They're just running drills. It's
Yeah,
not,
is that
it's
what
just,
it is?
Yeah,
It's just a drill,
National
yeah.
Guard. They're not really,
Yeah.
an actual fighting unit in the 70s. It's
Right.
just,
I'm sure they said in the movie what they were doing specifically, but it kind of just went in one ear and out the other, I think. But yeah, basically they end up in the woods or the swamps and come afoul of some local folk there, and things get kind of deliverance-y, I guess.
yeah, deliverance on steroids a little bit
Yeah,
in some cases. Yeah.
This movie definitely has, it takes a lot of cues from Deliverance in a lot of ways. What'd you think of the movie? Did you like it?
I did like it. I have some caveats.
Yeah, me too.
Just up front, if you do want to watch this movie to kind of listen to the podcast and everything, we have to put up front some trigger warnings because if you're very sensitive about animals and animal cruelty, there's several moments in this movie where you're treated to dead animals or animals being slaughtered. And it's real. So just a little heads up. I know that's like a real point of contention for something like Cannibal Holocaust. That's why it's very controversial. This has a couple of moments that are rivaling those to me.
Yeah, it's kind of odd
Yeah.
that this isn't more notorious.
Yeah.
Especially with Cannibal Holocaust being such a big one. You would think that this would be more out there. Like, because I've heard of this movie, but I don't think it sits up there in the horror echelon like Cannibal Holocaust does, especially for like extreme or like hard to watch content.
Well, I mean, and it was a relatively mainstream movie. I mean,
Roughly, I think Cannibal Holocaust came out in like 80 or 81, didn't it?
I think it's late 70s, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, the editing in this is much more sophisticated.
That's true. I guess Cannibal Holocaust does have the whole point of like there was a trial and everything to prove that people weren't actually killed and all that. So this movie didn't have that notoriety to it.
It's
so
a
I guess that
mainstream,
almost
almost Hollywood production.
like there's
right?
a lot of well-known actors in it and by a well-known director. Where Cannibal Holocaust wasn't. It was all like unknowns and had that element of the whole found footage type thing.
Sure.
So I guess it makes a little more sense now that we break it down. And now I sound like a fucking idiot.
No, absolutely not. Oh, you asked about the actual movie, though. I did like the movie. I just thought the pacing, when they're in the swamp, just kind of walking, sometimes it felt a little...
Felt like you were dragging through water like they were through the whole movie?
Yeah, which, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe that was the intention. But, as far as entertainment value, it seemed like they were having the same conversations over and over. And the soldiers are having the same conversations. And they're kind of dealing with the same exact problem the whole time. So the sequences sometimes in the swamp, I felt like we could have lost 10 minutes and not noticed it. Sometimes, the running time isn't justified to me.
Yeah, it was like an hour 45.
Right.
So yeah, I could totally see you trying to push it down to like an hour 30, and probably would have benefited. Yeah, the pay. I mean, I could see what you're saying. I kind of watched it. I was having to pause it to do other stuff. So the pacing never really threw me off too much. Maybe it would if I sat there in one long stretch watching it. It was, I don't know, there's a disconnect for me with this. And I'm not sure the only thing I can think is it's the characters in the movie.
Yeah.
Because there's not really a likable character in this movie at all. You have like maybe two that kind of seem like sensible people, but the rest of them, like, you're kind of rooting for whatever's the elements that are out there.
It's interesting because Walter Hill is the director and co-writer of this, and I feel like at one point he said something along the lines of he would like to make another version of this from the Cajuns' point of view, where you just kind of see how they felt about all this and them stalking, these National Guardsmen through their home turf. And it's interesting because I think what you're saying basically is that they're almost not protagonists in the traditional sense. Yeah. They're almost the bad guys, right?
They pretty much are.
I mean,
really.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, they pretty much are. Even though it's not all of them that gets, everything going. None of them handle it in a decent way whatsoever. None of them are really likable all that much. So yeah, it kind of, even though they don't all start it, it's just one of them that gets things started. They all kind of contribute into some unnecessariness that just makes them, they're kind of the villains of it, really.
I guess we should backtrack a little bit. I mean, Walter Hill and his writing partners in this, right? His producing and writing partners, Michael Caine and David Giler, right? Who they famously did Alien.
Yeah.
They're kind of the creative team behind Ridley Scott. There's a little bit of carryover, I feel like, from Alien to this in terms of, a kind of a group
that group dynamic.
Group dynamic in a alien territory,
right?
And getting stalked, picked off one by one. So it's interesting. And then Warriors, obviously, too, is a very similar premise,
right?
Where it's a group of people going through territory that they're unfamiliar with, right? Trying to survive the night. But one thing I think people don't really talk about much is it's set in 1973, which I'm pretty sure is close to the year that we pulled out of Vietnam. And a lot of people join the National Guard to avoid getting drafted. So these dudes, a lot of them you could argue are draft dodgers in a weird way. Like they basically did the legal version of a draft dodge.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's a little bit, of an undercurrent of their cowardice is kind of at play here a little bit. Like these are dudes that did not want to get drafted, didn't want to go to a real war, but some of them are pretending to still be like these macho, Fred Ward's character.
I could totally see that. Or in cases of something like him, maybe not stable enough to go to actual war.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So yeah, I could absolutely see that being a thing, because these guys are kind of, they're not the soldier type in the sense of sort of having any type of structure or sensible, decisions being made. They're kind of selfish, a little bit ignorant.
Weekend warriors too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely they fit that mentality of people that think they know what being tough and macho is, but they really have no clue.
Well, and it's great cast of it's almost like in the mold of a Dirty Dozen type of thing.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of men's men type of things. You have Keith Carradine,
Powers
Booth, right?
Fred Ward. I mean, and like I will say, with everybody in it, they did a fantastic job. Because really, when I think Fred Ward, I obviously think Tremors. That's what I know him, and he's such a fun, lovable character. And here you fucking hate him, so he did a great job.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm trying to think if there's was there any other like sort of big names in there?
Well, I mean, you could argue Peter Coyote, right?
Peter Coyote, yeah.
Which, I mean, I think backtracking just a little bit to, these guys, they're running drills. It's a group of 9 that break away from the main group that, because in the beginning of the film,
it's like
you
a
see,
huge sort of battalion, like a bunch of people.
Right. It's quite a few people, but Peter Coyote, he's like the sergeant, and he's basically like, okay, we're going to go run this drill. It's overnight. We're basically just trekking across this environment. Once we get to the other side, it's done. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, they have a point B to get to, which is like where they're supposed to be meeting up or something along those lines.
And like Powers Booth, it should be noted, his character Hardin, he is a transfer. He's normally in Texas, but for whatever reason, maybe just to get the training in or whatever, he's there in Louisiana.
Yeah, he kind of says that they just transferred him, but don't really give any sort of backstory as to why.
And he makes a point of, I'm from Texas, I'm from El Paso, and that kind of makes him an outsider to begin with. And then Keith Carradine is kind of, busting his chops a little bit, asking about himself. And Powers Booth's character mentions that he's a chemical engineer, which seems like he is, he's like a couple of clicks over from the rest of the guys, because he's extremely well educated and, from a different part of the country.
Right.
And they seem to kind of not, I mean, they're hazing him, obviously, because he's the new guy, but also him being from Texas seems to be a big point of issue for some of these guys. I don't know. I'm not really sure totally what that's about. I don't know much about Louisiana versus Texas type stuff.
Or it could just be that sort of Southern territorial, like outsider type thing. You know, like you're not from here, so.
Well, it's interesting that they didn't try to make him a Yankee.
That would make more sense because he's still from the South, but yeah. But it really, like, people like to kind of just put the South all in like one category, but there's a big difference from Texas South, Tennessee South to Louisiana South. Like we could go to like Louisiana and still be culture shocked, even though we're all from the South. So,
well, and I've met Southerners from other parts of the country who, when I tell them I'm from, close to Nashville, Tennessee, they go, "Oh, that's not really the South." You know what I mean? So there's even kind of like that type of thing going on where people will kind of argue that that's not truly Southern, even though the classical definition obviously goes back to the Civil War. It's like a definite thing, but whatever. Oh yeah, and then I feel like Powers Booth mentions a lot that he is a chemical engineer. I feel like he drops that a lot. I don't know if it's just he's just kind of pushing his superiority on them.
Yeah, it's almost one of those things like uppity type things, like I'm better than you. Like he mentions a lot about how they're just like brain dead rednecks and all this, and clear he doesn't want to be there dealing with them, and he sees that he's better than them. Well, which I mean, kind of.
I agree.
But yeah.
And Keith Carradine even mentions, he's like, what do you usually do in Texas in the Guard? And he said, well, usually we watch a football game.
Yeah.
We have it all sorted out and we just relax.
Our stuff's a lot more structured.
And obviously these guys want to play war. I mean, they want to pretend that they're actual soldiers and everything. And I guess you could argue that Peter Coyote, the sergeant, really is, because he seems to be very disciplined and orderly, and
except for the part that he has no control over his men. But
they don't really, they begrudgingly respect him, I guess, right? And follow his orders.
And it probably is one of those things that they're just playing weekend warrior. They're not in the real thick of it, like dealing with like real threats. So they're just like, man, whatever. We're just having fun here. Fuck off.
Yeah. But I mean, to his credit, he does at least keep them together and somewhat orderly. Keith Carradine's character has arranged for prostitutes at the other side of this trek or whatever. So that's like a big motivator for half of these guys. They think that they're going to go get laid with these ladies of the night. Which another point is that they don't. There's very few women in this movie. Like, we don't hear a woman speak until like the last act of the movie.
Yeah,
basically.
That's true. Yeah,
right?
There's not any others. Yeah,
very Dirty Dozen feel to me sometimes. But yeah, tell us about the inciting incident. What happens that really sets this off?
So yeah, basically, you got these guys. They go trekking through the woods. I keep saying, I mean, I guess it is the woods, but it's like the swamp because they're pretty much they're in water constantly.
Looks miserable.
Yeah. Oh man, this had to be a tough shoot. This is one of those movies you'd like to see a making of, because I bet it was rough.
It's not only is it in the swamp, it's during the winter time.
Yeah.
So it's cold too.
Yeah.
And you can see it sometimes. You can almost see like on their faces that they're truly miserable. Yeah.
But anyways, they're going through the swamp, and they are basically getting lost. That's what it seems like. They're saying they're not lost, but it seems like they're lost. They come across some locals, the Cajuns, as they call them. Their campsite, they're not there, but their campsite's there, and they find some boats. So they take the boats, leave a note saying that, I guess, that they'll bring them back or where they can pick them up.
Yeah. There's a brief argument of like, do we leave one of these, because there's several canoes there, do we leave one for them so they can like go to the other side of this body of water and retrieve, their canoes? Which they claim, by the way, that the water is new, that it's supposed to be where they could just walk across it, but somehow it's been flooding or whatever. Right. But like you said, they're probably just lost and don't really know where they're going, and they just commandeer these canoes.
they just steal these people's canoes. As they're going down, the locals show up and on the shore, and like any good soldier, not really, but one of these. have his character name?
Stucky.
Stucky.
Yeah. Stucky.
Stucky. He's a fucking idiot. He starts firing a rifle, an assault rifle, at these guys. They're blanks, but he starts firing it in their direction. They drop down, and obviously, because they think they're being shot at.
Which Stucky had done that earlier in the film. In the opening, he's fucking around and shoots blanks.
Stucky, you can clear is... He's a buffoon, and he's not taking any of this seriously. And he's one of those people that everybody should be able to take his joke.
Right.
Because he's just joking. Doesn't matter if it's not funny.
And unfortunately, it's another one of those instances where even though he's an exaggerated Southerner, like, I have met that guy.
Oh, my God.
I've met that guy in Tennessee. Yeah. I've worked with him at some point. Yeah.
I've known him. I've known them. That's for sure.
Doing a serious job and having a guy that wants to push things and antagonize people and go, oh, is this a joke? Why is everybody getting out of hand?
Yeah. Well, why are y'all being assholes? Yeah, that person that everything's a joke until you get pissed off and they're like, wow, why are you being a jerk? Jesus.
Right.
But
and this is, by the way, you said assault rifle. I don't know enough about firearms for the terminology, but this is a fucking machine gun.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a serious machine gun. It's not just like pow, pow, pow. It's like...
It's like a M16 or something like
Predator
that.
when they're shooting the forest and it's just like falling apart. It's like that type of machine gun, right?
And afterwards, like any person would do, the locals return fire, killing the I don't know his exact title.
The sergeant.
Yeah, sergeant. He's a sergeant.
Was his name? Yeah. Peter Coyote's character.
Coyote. Yeah. Shoot and kill him, and then the shit hits the proverbial fan.
Right. In the canoes, they basically all of them. What do you call it?
Capsize.
That's what I'm looking for.
The one, I forget who it was because it's kind of chaotic, goes over and starts capsizing them all. I guess in a sense to like everybody be down.
Right.
That's what I assumed. But he's deliberately capsizing all the boats or the canoes. And I can only assume it. I don't think he was. The only logical thing I could say is that everybody get down.
Don't be headshots. Yeah, they're sitting ducks otherwise. Yeah.
So, they swim to shore. Right at that point, I think that's like a really good scene. Like that scene, like right when there's this, dichotomy. That's probably not the word. I'm probably using that wrong. But of them just being in a panic.
Yeah.
And then also you have like all these sounds of nature, like these birds are losing their shit and all that. It's a really good, intense scene.
This is another one where it's like it's 81, but it feels a little bit like 70s filmmaking.
Yeah,
because
very much so.
Very little score in this movie, and when it's used, it's like extremely effective.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's sound effects, it's the nature, and it's like the setting is what you're hearing, and it augments the action rather than, again, having score that just goes like, this is how you feel, you know what I mean? Man, and all their equipment gets destroyed pretty much in this capsizing.
Most of it was in the boat. Yeah, so like all of it was gone.
It's like it's funny because they're recounting. They're like stressed out. And they're like, okay, do we have a map? No. Do we have a radio? No. Do we have a compass? No. It's like all these things that would be essential to help them get out of this situation got destroyed. Although Powers Booth and another character managed to have their cigarettes and marijuana
completely dry. They're good.
Those dudes were like ready for the weekend. So.
They had that shit packed up. It was sealed up. They were fine. Yeah. I didn't clock that, but that's true because like Powers Booth is like smoking a ton like after everything happens, and the one gentleman has got his weed, trying to calm down. Yeah, that should have been soaked, you would think. But
T.K. Carter, by the way, he was in The Thing also. Yeah, he's got some horror chops as well.
Absolutely. But that scene is a really tense, good scene, and like the sound design of like the birds and a panic too from the shots being fired and stuff it really kind of shows like how they're panicking as they're panicking because now it's not just let's play pretend. Now they're in the thick of it and they don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's like any training that they may have had is pretty much out the window too. Like it doesn't even come into play for the most part. To include the chemical engineering stuff, as much as Powers Booth drops that knowledge, he never uses it. I thought there would be a sequence at some point where he was like, listen, if we mix this with this,
Right.
we can have a real weapon against these guys, but they never go there. It should be noted that, yeah, they're armed with blanks too. So even though they all have rifles and everything, for the most part, they're kind of unarmed. Fred Ward's character,
He's good, the only one with bullets.
Yeah,
So they have to divvy them up like 2 bullets each.
Yeah, they literally
and then
get
they
2
just
guns.
immediately start using them.
And I think the viewer is almost supposed to know these guys aren't going to use these well. Like these 2 bullets apiece are going to
They're
be
way
wasted.
they're in way over their head. They don't know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
And it shows. It shows. Of course, like I said, with like Fred, he doesn't want. He initially loads up his magazine with all the bullets and doesn't tell anybody. But apparently, I forget which one. One of them knew that he had brought some actual real live ammunition with him, and so he's ready to shoot somebody over it. He don't want to give them up until I think it was Powers Booth character, right? Puts a knife to his neck and makes him give them up. But yeah, so they end up with like 2 bullets each. So
I mean, from there, it's Casper, who's kind of like the next in the chain of command, takes over. He's a very by-the-book, nerdy, maybe not the most assertive guy, but he is the de facto leader.
You feel like maybe he could have some structure going on, but he doesn't have, like you said, like he doesn't have the wherewithal to implement any of that. But you could see that he might be able to like possibly figure some stuff out if he had the time and to prepare and all that. But he's in over his head too.
I mean, and from there, I mean, it becomes
one bad decision after another.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of.
I mean, you look at Deliverance; it's basically the same thing, except with less likable characters.
Right, and it's people that should be able to, in theory, professionally handle this. You know what I mean? They should be able to find their way out of this wilderness without too many problems, but they can't. I mean, they're absolutely clueless about where they're at, and it's weird because something about this swamp. I felt like over and over they were gonna like that they could. It was like Blair Witch style, where it almost feels like if they panned over, you would see a road.
Right.
It felt that way a lot, like where I was like, man, it doesn't seem like they're that far away for some reason. Which,
funnily enough, kind of ends up how it goes. But yeah,
one thing about Deliverance, in contrast to this, is Deliverance is like lush and beautiful, and the setting is almost like it's like fantasy almost. Whereas this
very beautiful, yeah. I agree. Where this is very drab, bleak, dark, gray.
Yeah,
like it just seems very unpleasant all around.
It's miserable. It's such a contrast between the two. For them to share so much DNA, it's interesting that Hill decided like, oh, this is gonna feel a lot different. You know what I mean? Tonally, it's gonna be different, even though the storyline is a very similar feel. The big difference is they actually managed to capture a local and bring him along for the trek or whatever, right?
Yeah, they catch him in his little hut out in the swamp. So they take him hostage, assuming that he was one of the people involved. And they're trying to question him, and he doesn't speak English.
He's only Cajun, right?
French.
Yeah.
Louisiana French.
And even though all these dudes are from the area,
theoretically,
none speak French worth a damn, right?
Yeah. I think it was Carradine's character speaks like very, very minimal, just like can garner a few words here and there. But
right.
Yeah, you would think they would know.
Somebody in the group
at least
would
one
know
person,
how to speak.
But yeah. So they end up just taking him hostage. Well, they call it, arresting him.
Right.
But basically they just take a hostage to question him when they get to where they need to be. And then you have, I don't know who the dude is.
Coach. They call him Coach a lot. Yeah.
He loses his shit.
Yeah.
And
he claims he's upset by Pool's death.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to really care. I guess we're starting to get into a little bit of like spoiler territory.
Right.
But I don't know what. Did you find? Could you understand what the red cross was about?
I don't understand it at all.
He paints a red cross across his chest. He first, when they're trying to capture him, he shoots his 2 bullets off.
Oh, yeah.
And then runs in after they told him to hang back.
Yeah.
He just runs in and just like grabs the dude who tackles him and all this. But then he decides to go into the gentleman's hut where they got ammunition, they got guns, they got dynamite, they got food, they got everything. Again, they got plenty of supplies. And he decides to paint a red cross on his chest and then throw a Molotov cocktail into it and blow it up with the dynamite in there, which makes it really blow up. Yeah. And
it's impressive.
Yeah. Thankfully, the other characters are thinking the same shit. We're thinking like, the fuck is with the Red Cross? But it's never really explained. I don't know like what the point of that was.
I mean, earlier in the movie, it's implied, or I think it's stated that he's religious, and because he's one of the people that is like, I don't really care about the prostitutes. At the end. You know, he's like,
isn't he the one that gets offended by the guy smoking the weed too and all that?
He claims that like kills your motive to succeed or whatever. It makes you like too laid back for your own good. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's just kind of a righteous person. So I feel like that's all there is to it.
Yeah, maybe.
But he claims it's a joke of some kind. He's like, well, you don't get it? And like everyone's like, no, I don't understand. It's kind of like one of those mysteries. Clue. Yeah.
I didn't know if there was anything behind that. It was like, I don't know. I guess because it was just one of those things. He's losing his shit. We're just going to have this happen. And in his head, it makes sense, just not to anybody else. But yeah, at that point, they're back to zero. They don't have any supplies or anything like that.
And they have a hostage.
Now they have a hostage.
Who's played by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Brian James, but it's spelled B-R-I-O-N.
Oh. Okay.
Byron, maybe? Byron. Yeah. But he's, from a lot of genre movies, like Blade Runner, obviously, and he pops up as, like a fun character actor and villain a lot of times in movies.
Yeah, I know he had a familiar look. I'm not too familiar with him, but I know he looked familiar. Like I'd seen him in some stuff before.
I thought he was great.
Yeah, he was really good. I would say with this, one thing that I liked about it that it took from Deliverance, it does that same thing Deliverance does, that you're not exactly sure. Are they being hunted? Are they not? Is this dude... Did they really get someone that was in on killing the sergeant, or is he just a local that's living out here? Mm-hmm. You really don't. You have that kind of ambiguity to it, like you do in Deliverance. Like you don't know for sure what's good. Well, and spoiler alert, until the very end, it becomes really apparent that they are being hunted. Right. Because even in Deliverance, it kind of leaves it where you're not exactly sure. You don't know, yeah. But this one's like, no. As soon as, again, we're getting into spoilers, but as soon as you see all the dead guys that they buried strung up like against the tree, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, they're being hunted. That's what's going on. Yeah, because even a couple characters get caught by traps and killed by traps and everything, but even though, and they do find like some bear traps on the ground and stuff, which has a really fucked up funny line. Like Fred Ward says something like, it's like a still pussy or something, and they're like, I don't know about the women you've been meeting or something.
There's
that was pretty funny.
There's lots of 80s man's man dialogue in this, back and forth.
So they do find these traps or get killed by traps, but you still don't know for sure, like, were those really set for them, or were they just happenstance to come across them? So I did like that point of it until it gets to the end. You know,
it's ambiguous for sure. Yeah. Some of these traps, like you said, are like ordinary and may have even just been accidental. But there's one in particular towards the end of this, the swamp sequence, where trees are falling all around them.
That's after the bodies have been revealed. Yeah, but I don't know, like, what was going, I don't understand, because there's like a bunch of trees falling.
It's almost like surreal, because you just kind of have to go with it. It's almost like supernatural at that point, because logistically, how would they ever be able to figure out what path they would take where they could like, I mean, did they like saw these trees halfway in half and then push them? Like the logistics of it are completely
it doesn't make any
not
sense.
explained or whatever. But the visual nature of it is really cool.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic scene. I mean, I'm trying to think, were there like explosion sounds? Maybe they use like dynamite or something.
I think so.
It really is odd. It really becomes one of those things, almost like the swamp is trying to get them.
I think that's what they were going for. I think you called it. Yeah.
I don't understand how they would be able to pull something like that off, especially because it seems like it's just the 4 guys, 3 or 4 locals, and there's like probably, I don't know, it felt like at least 8, 9 trees are falling.
Right. Yeah, it was really excessive. We should note too, by the way, Fred Ward's character gets killed by Powers Booth.
That's right. Yeah, because Powers Booth's character wakes up to find Fred Ward's character basically trying to drown the hostage.
Yeah.
And so he stops him.
Yeah.
And they get into a little knife fight, and Power Booth wins.
Yeah.
So.
And he's cheered on by the Cajun. The Cajun's like,
kill him!
Kill him! The Stucky character, the guy that really, made all this happen with firing the blanks at the locals and everything, he has a very horrifying death. I thought it was really well done, and just because he falls in like to the Hollywood style quick mud or quicksand.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And they see a helicopter, a military helicopter, and they get excited. All the guys are like, "Oh my God, we're gonna be rescued!" And he's just desperately running after this helicopter, falls into this mud, and you just see him just slowly sinking in. Just the look of, it's almost like childlike, fear, right? Just kind of overtaking him as he's like looking up at the helicopter, and it just slowly sinks in. And I just thought it was really well done. Just how close he was to salvation and getting out of it. But like the nature still just took him,
Yeah, absolutely. So and then you get to the point after basically everybody dies but Booth and Carradine's character.
Right.
The only 2 salvageable people in this movie.
Yeah.
Everybody else are like, oh, okay, shouldn't root for someone to die, but I'm not upset.
Right.
So you get them 2, and they're waiting it out for the night. Before they get back to trying to get out of the situation they're in. And there is a good little kind of character moment between them, like a little back and forth, and like Carradine makes a joke about if you don't make it, I'm gonna maybe look your wife up, and he's he laughs, but then he's like, I said my wife has a good sense of humor, I don't. It was just like some really good like character moment between them that I really liked. But and then it gets to, I mean, we're kind of going all over the place because there's a point where there's like dogs attacking them. And the point, there's one of the guys, he gets into a panic again, like these people. He thinks he sees somebody, so he just starts running and erratically shooting into the woods with blanks after his first 2. Like, I don't know what he's doing. He's just like scared shitless.
They're shooting a lot of blinks.
Oh, tons.
It's which I don't know. Again, is that like a Vietnam, or is how ineffectual the military can be? But I'm surprised
how ineffectual these people can
definitely.
be.
It's wild that they're shooting blanks, but maybe that's part of it. It's like these guys are impotent or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it definitely tracks. But then it gets to that point that you were talking about earlier, the whole Blair Witch thing. They wake up and then they were like maybe 20 feet from the road the whole time that night.
A railroad.
Yeah,
a train coming through
and like a little
wakes them up, right?
Them up, yeah.
From there, it just becomes a different movie. Like the last act of this thing, to me, is outstanding. When these 2 characters make it to a Cajun village, and it just becomes a totally different thing. They go from like this wilderness environment to like this totally different culture where everyone's speaking a different language.
Yeah.
And the music, and it's the first time that music is like really saturated into the movie. and we don't know which way is up because everyone's being really nice to them and like, hey, have a beer,
Uncomfortably nice.
have some food, enjoy this music, and it's just everyone's having this big party. This is where we brought up earlier that there's some animal cruelty, but in reality they're just slaughtering pigs, which the locals were doing on a regular basis, and they decided to incorporate it into the movie.
Right.
So all they're doing is filming an actual slaughter, but it's very graphic, and it's kind of like juxtaposed to the idea that these guys are being hunted still, because Powers Booth is still super paranoid that these guys are going to show up to this village and try to kill them. And Keith Carradine's like, hey, we made it, we're good, and he's just enjoying.
He's good to go.
Yeah, he's having a good time. Yeah.
And that's where it comes into this scene was like the other scene that I really loved. It's so tense in between them out, because like they're hanging up like nooses and stuff, and you don't know if it's for them or what's going on. It ends up being for, like you said, the pigs. But in between that and then like the sort of jovialness of the music and his paranoia, and it gets intense. Like, what's gonna happen next? You just don't know. Like, is it some type of race with the devil shit where everybody's in on it, or are these people fine? And and then even then, they're still not out of the quote unquote woods yet with the other hunters that have been coming after them. It's just a really well put together scene. It was fantastic. It had me tensed up. I liked it a lot.
To me, it's the saving grace of the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And why you would want to check this one out, and why it is elevated and not just a Deliverance ripoff, because it's very unique. And against the Deliverance comparisons, I feel like it's done in a totally different way. And the music is just underscoring everything. It's just, this whole thing is just intercut with violence to animals, to the people, to just the people enjoying the music, and it's just this big whirlwind. It's really impressive. I mean, it's a cool sequence for sure.
It shows you, really how fantastic Walter Hill is as a director and what he does. Like, it blew me. Like you said, it's the saving grace of the movie. Yeah. Especially to happen to these two characters, only two that you would remotely care for. It was really fantastic how it was handled. And, you just pointed, you're talking about the Vietnam comparison. And I guess that is true because, like you said, they do, even though they're in the U.S., they do step into a foreign land where people speak a different language. And that comparison holds up.
I did want to point out that most of the filmmakers and people in the film are Yankees or Californians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not many of them are actually Southern. I think Powers Booth might actually be from Texas, but for the most part, the California guys. But honestly, it didn't really bother me. I didn't really feel like anyone was like a grotesque parody or anything like that.
And maybe there is some, just like you were saying, how there's so many different like factions in America. Maybe it's because we are, or at least I am, less familiar with like Louisiana.
Right.
So maybe you ask somebody from there, they're like, oh, those Cajuns were a gross stereotype or something. I don't know. But yeah, for me, it felt enough out of place, and the characters we do have felt honest enough that, I mean, it didn't feel like caricatures or anything like that. It felt pretty Southern. It felt pretty honest to me.
The Cajun culture is something I'm 100% ignorant of too, so I have nothing to, like you said, I have nothing to kind of judge it by or whatever. But the main characters, the military guys, I thought they all checked out fine. I mean,
frustratingly so. Some of them are people I've seen and known. Yeah.
So let's grade this one. What do you want to give it?
I was gonna say a C, but I think it's just so well directed, and especially with like that like end scene and all that. Only with the caveat that it could have been a little bit shorter. I think it's really worth checking out. I think it's a solid movie. I'd give it a B-.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I largely agree with you. We need to get a movie on here where we butt heads again. It's been a long time.
It's a fucking F.
But I agree, because you have to wade through the swamp with these guys, and it gets a little tedious at times. But man, the way it punches out is just, it definitely elevates this one. So I think I'd give it more like a B+. It's one
That's crazy. It's a B-.
I don't know that how often I'll revisit this, but I could totally see myself watching the last part of it again,
It's
like
such
in
a
the
well
near
put
future.
together.
Yeah,
They should teach that shit in film class.
for real.
Like, it's
they really
really
should.
good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So Southern Comfort is readily available. Trigger warning: there is violence against animals.
Yes.
There's a little bit of racial language that might rub you the wrong way, but
That was a little uncomfortable.
It was straight out the bat, too,
Man, it's
some of
like,
it.
hey, you're gonna go head first into this fucking movie.
right. But I mean, it's all kind of story appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, it's casting these characters in a certain light where,
Again, unfortunately, it's kind of an honest.
yeah, you're not
Honest
supposed to
way.
like these guys in the traditional sense. I don't believe. So there you have it. Southern Comfort.
Southern Comfort. Hopefully, we don't have to do. Did you? In the credits, it shows that they had to like get permission from the Southern Comfort Liquor to use the title. I was like, that's odd, but okay.
It is really odd, but I
So,
guess.
Don't come after us, Southern Comfort.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, that's what that phrase is associated with.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
And they're being tongue in cheek, obviously, because there is no Southern Comfort in this.
Nothing. None at all.
All right. So the Holler Kings with Southern Comfort, we say check it out.
Check it out.
All right. We like to end every episode of the Holler Kings with Holler at Your Boys.
Oh, shit.
In which we, the Holler Kings, recommend something to you, the listeners.
Recommend. Maybe we'll cry erratically about a movie.
Oh, right.
Justifiably so.
I guess it's open topic
yeah,
is more
it's
what
just
it's not really recommendations necessarily, but just like
Right.
an open topic towards the end of
But
the
sometimes it will be recommendations, like it is today.
Oh, goodness.
Oh.
I'll start us off because
Okay.
mine's
Yeah,
very
go ahead.
simple. I just want to reiterate Hi-Fi. That's my recommendation. If you like spooky music and synthwave, be sure to plug Hi-Fi, that's HYFY, into a search engine. You'll find them on social media. You definitely will find them on Bandcamp. That's where you can purchase their music. And definitely check them out. And I might drop a little sample right here so you have some context to how groovy it is.
Oh shit! Did y'all like that? How that was edited in there? That was amazing.
Enjoy.
Yes, yeah, definitely check. I'm gonna check them out. So if I'm doing it, y'all definitely have to. So yeah, I just had a couple quick things I want to since the last time we recorded. A couple things have come to my attention. First thing I want to talk. One, I can't really say necessarily as a recommendation, but it's just something I wanted to put on people's radar. It looked interesting to me, so I just wanted. I'm excited about it. Is this new game coming out called The Quarry?
What if we're out partying tonight out in the woods and we end up in a most dangerous game situation?
Like when people hunt other people?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's camp is over and hunting season has just begun.
I did see a weird light in the treehouse across the lake. That was pretty spooky. Maybe it's your girlfriend, Brian.
The heck of heck, it's Quarry.
You're not really a game. Are you a game player?
No, you sent this to me and I watched it and it looked really interesting to me, but I have no context for games or anything like that. Yeah.
I'm not much of a gamer either, but occasionally I will get into a game every
Right.
once in a while, and I have kids. They love playing games, so they kind of hit my radar a little bit. And I came across this one, and it gave me, because like when Friday the 13th game came out, that was another one that when it was coming out, I was like, oh, I got excited. Most of the time, I don't really get excited about games, but that one coming out, I was like, oh, I gotta get that game. I gotta play it. I gotta kill people as Jason. It's gonna be fucking
It looked
awesome.
really cool. It did look really cool.
It actually is really fun.
The whole phenomenon of people playing video games, like watching people play video games online. Like, I'm an old man, so I hate that idea. but that's one of the few times where I've done that. Like, I actually watch people play that games because it was really interesting to me. Like, I almost pulled the trigger where I was like, I should do this, but. Yeah. I was like, I feel pretty satisfied just watching people do it, and I kind of have an idea of what it was like and everything.
Yeah,
so,
it's definitely fun to play a little bit. But yeah, especially if you're not a big gamer like me,
right?
It gets a little old kind of quick. But you got a good couple hours that you can play and have a blast with.
Sure.
Being Jason, killing people in like grotesque ways,
right?
And then trying to like survive and run through what's kind of like always that kind of thing of you used to talk about with your friends, like, oh dude, I could survive a Friday the 13th movie, and then you can actually try to, and most of the time you don't.
Doesn't work out.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, this new game, it's coming out from 2K, which is pretty big company as far as I can understand. I know I've heard of them, and them having a lot of games coming out before. It looks like it has a really 80s like vibe to it. It takes place at a camp, and you play as camp counselors and all this. It looks like, I don't know, it just looks really fun to me. It has an amazing cast. You got did you watch the trailer and see all the cast?
Your boy David Arquette is one of them.
Oh man, Dewey's back, baby. You got David Arquette, Lynn Shay, Skylar Gizondo.
Perfect.
I nailed it. I'm pretty sure that's the kid. Did you ever watch Santa Clarita Diet?
No. I know of it, but I've never watched it.
I think it was that show he was on. He was like the son on that show, and he was really funny on that show and really good. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Ariel Winter, who I know that name. I think she was on like Modern Family or something. I know it's a big name, so she's in there. Brenda Song is in it.
Everyone's who's anyone.
I'm telling you. Miss they even got Miss Macaulay Culkin.
Oh.
So, telling you, man. It's amazing. They got Ted Raimi, Lance Hendrickson.
Ted Raimi. Well, it should be noted, too, that they're not just doing the voice work. Like, the animation looks like those people. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, it's got an amazing cast and everything. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out to people.
And it's a survival horror game, right?
From what it looks like. Yeah, it looks like it's
like in a camp.
Yeah. And it looks pretty fun. I don't know. It comes out June 10th. I'm definitely going to get it.
Nice.
And play it. I haven't ordered it yet because I can't decide, because I got one kid that's got an Xbox One and another one's that's got a PS5. I don't know which one to order the game on. So I'm still trying to decide that. But yeah, it's out there. You can go to quarrygame.2k.com and I don't know, check out the trailer, see if it's something that interests you.
Bears.
And why does everyone blame everything on bears? Okay.
You got anything better? Like zombies, aliens, time-hopping Draculas.
Ryan?
Hey!
Run! Anything needs to happen, please!
We ain't playing games no more, little girl.
There's something coming!
1, 2, lost, Max, we're lost. 3!
Terrified kids are bad for business. You have to cut it off! Cut it off!
The other thing I would like to recommend...
You would like to holler about...
The other thing I would like to holler about is Never Hike Alone 2. Did you ever watch any of the Never Hike Alone?
Yes, because you, back in a couple of years ago when you were writing for Half-Ass Horrorcast, you wrote about the original, so I watched that one, yeah.
What'd you think of it? Did you like it?
Oh, I thought it was really fun. Yeah, for sure. It should be noted, it's professionally made, but it's, kind of a fan film,
it's a fan,
right?
Yeah, it's definitely a fan film, but as someone who's watched a lot of fan films, most of them aren't that great. These are really well put together. These are pretty fantastic. Yeah. They've done... There was Never Hike Alone, then they did Never Hike in the Snow, and now they got Never Hike Alone 2 coming out.
Give us an idea of what the general premise of the series is. It's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, basically. One interesting, these are all crowdfunded, usually through Indiegogo. It's this guy, Vincent DeSanti, who I think he plays Jason in it, and then he's like the director, I think the writer too. Maybe there's some other people helping write. I don't know. I know he has like some other short films and stuff like that, but this is some of his biggest stuff. But he does everything really well with it. And in the series, I don't know if it was deliberate or something, but each one has kind of had an element of like a rumored Friday the 13th. Like back, there was always rumors there was going to be a found footage Friday the 13th, and Never Hike Alone it's not found footage, but it's about this guy who going hiking in the woods, and he does like the YouTube videos. And so there's like elements of him like talking to the camera, like his audience and stuff. So it has that element sort of found footage.
Yeah.
And in that, in Never Hike Alone, he comes across Camp Crystal Lake and ends up coming across Jason.
Right.
And it's him trying to survive. It's a pretty isolated story. It's mainly just him and Jason. Some other people come in sort of towards the end. But it's a really cool story, and it's well directed, and cinematography is great. Then there's Never Hike in the Snow, which there was always rumors of they're going to do Jason, but it's going to be in the snow.
Right.
So there's that, and it expands some of the storyline, and I don't want to give away because they bring some characters that have been in past like official Friday the 13th movies into it. I don't want to give those away, those little cameos, but there's a couple. There's one in Never Hiking Alone, and there's a couple in Never Hike in the Snow, and it kind of just expands that storyline of a camper has went missing, and the local sheriff is trying to figure out what's going on and trying to find the kid. That basically brings us to now, which with Never Hike Alone 2. And this is supposed to be an expanded, it's supposed to be, the other two were short films. Like Alone was, I think, maybe like 55 minutes, and Snow is like maybe 30 minutes. So there's also a music video they did called Disappear, which revolves around it too, which has this really great shot. Like when it first begins, it's Jason just sitting there like in one of the cabins or like in an attic. He's just sitting there. Mom's head is right there, and there's like all these beams of like sunlight shining through across the floor. Oh man, it's beautiful. It's amazing looking. I'm telling you, like the cinematography is great. So this is basically supposed to expand on all that, and it's going to be a full-length movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I totally recommend, because I've contributed to the other campaigns. I just did the Blu-rays, but I got Blu-ray of Alone, Snow, and the full. They have where they put Snow, Alone, and I think the music video all together into one long cut called the Ghost Cut, which actually you can watch on YouTube too. I got it on Blu-ray. So I'm contributing to this and going to get the Blu-ray of this too. And I just wanted, if it's something that's not on your radar, I want to put it on your radar. Don't take my word for it. Google it on YouTube, or not, search it on YouTube, and you can watch all of them. Like I said, you can watch each one individually, or just watch the Ghost Cut and watch it all in one full long thing. And if you like it, if you love Friday the 13th, go to Indiegogo, search Never Hike Alone, and contribute. Help them get some money to make a full-length Friday the 13th film. Just wanted to recommend it, put it out there on people's radar to check out.
It's a good thing too, because obviously, because Friday the 13th is having so many legal problems, we haven't had a new film in that franchise since 2009 with the remake. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a real dearth in Friday the 13th material besides that game that you mentioned. Yeah. How do they circumvent the legal stuff? Like, how are they able to do this without getting in trouble, I wonder?
I think it's just enough under the radar that they're really not making money. Like, if they're honest about what they say, they're really not making money. It's all going into production and to fulfill the like Blu-rays and stuff like that. Right. So it's all going into making what they say that they're doing. They're
It's
not
labor of
taking
love
any
type
profit
stuff.
from it.
Yeah.
Like I said, at least that's what they say.
Right.
So I guess with that, and since like this is the biggest one they've done. I think most of the other like campaigns were like maybe 30,000. So like Paramount or whoever, New Line, whoever owns it now, or they ain't paying attention to that. But this one's they're going for 150 grand this time. So it's a big one. That's another reason I'm trying to get it out there. So let's get them their money so they can make a fantastic fan film. But the studios ain't paying any attention to it.
Probably hopes that it's a dormant franchise.
That too, yeah.
Well,
because they can't do anything with it hardly anyways. So
Never Hike Alone Part 2. Check out their Indiegogo.
Contribute.
Yes, and check out their YouTube.
Yeah.
Is it just Never Hike Alone?
Yeah,
YouTube
if you just search, it's Womp, WOMP, Stomp, STOMP Films. But you can just search Never Hike Alone on YouTube, and it's like it'll be the first stuff that pops up.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.
Yes, thank y'all so much.
And don't forget
to draw on a blank. What is it?
I was going to say, don't forget to holler at your boys.
Oh, holler at your boys.
Yes.
You were going to say it?
Well, I was just going to see if you would.
Let's take it back to one, guys.
And don't forget to holler at your boys.
Oh, shit, y'all.